Hey guys, this is Charlotte, and you're watching Going In Raw.
Hey, friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome back to Going In Raw, the only pro wrestling podcast you can be listening to right here at youtube.com/Steve and Larson. Available wherever podcasts can be found. And of course, taped live at the Twitch at twitch.tv/Steve and Larson. Nothing is going on this weekend, so that's cool. Unless you go to the Placer County Fair and visit the Laced Gems booth. My wife has her jewelry on sale live in person. I'll be milling about for some of that time. I think it starts on Thursday, runs through Sunday. The craft fair there, 5 o'clock at night to 10 or something like that. I don't know what it is. Anyways, should be fun, I guess, if you like that stuff.
Like that, yeah.
But I might be there. Lacey's definitely going to be there. So she'll be the pretty lady in a big boot because she busted her foot yesterday.
That's a bummer,
moments
man.
before we went on the air. So that was fun. Anyways, yeah, let's talk about Raw, man. I'm actually kind of hyped to talk about. Oh, what do you want to talk about first?
We can get this little bit of news in first.
Oh, yeah,
a little
sure.
bit of news here.
Yeah.
A little bit of news. So, I believe we talked about Karrion Kross, Bronson Reed had reportedly worked some or did some like exhibition trial matches out for WWE officials at Thunderdome. I think it was last week.
Yeah.
And then it was reported yesterday that they were going to have matches on main event. Not in the main event of Raw, obviously, because we watched Raw. They weren't there.
They weren't there.
Show main event.
Yeah.
Karrion Kross was facing Shelton Benjamin. Bronson Reed facing Drew Gulak. I won't spoil who won those matches. You could probably work it out, though.
Yeah.
So somewhat noteworthy that they would make technically their main roster debut working a main event taping. Another thing that's kind of noteworthy is that apparently Scarlett did not join Karrion Kross ringside for his bout.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's sort of break this down a little bit. I believe, I'm not mistaken, Aleister Black.
I was just looking into that.
Had a match on main event
Before he was called up.
Yep. I don't remember exactly when. So this says May 13th, 2017.
Oh, that's quite a ways before he got called up then. Because I was just going through his time in NXT in 2018.
Okay, yeah. So this was when did he debut in NXT? Do you remember?
I mean, I can get there in a second. You say it's May 20 something?
This was May of 2017 that Aleister Black appeared on main event in a match against Kurt Hawkins, the most professional wrestler. So I mean, it's not sort of out of the
May 8th, 2017.
It's not sort of out of the realm of,
No.
It's not out of the ordinary for the higher ups there. Hey, you're already there. Vince is there. Ekarilla, Bruce Pritchard's there. Whoever's there needs to be there to get some guys on main event if they're going to be coming up for the draft or anything like that.
So according to Pro Fight DB, Aleister made his NXT in-ring debut at a house show, still as Tommy End, November 11th, 2016, in a win against Lince Dorado.
Okay, and then I know he did like a featured match on one of the UK tournament
against
shows.
Neville.
And he was still Tommy in there, I think.
Yep, that was January 15th, 2017.
That was January 20. Okay.
His first match as Aleister was 4 days after that.
Okay.
At a house show.
Okay. So it was a good 4 or 5 months into his run in NXT. That, he had a main event match, which was still probably a year or two away from, I forget how long he was in NXT.
I think it was about a year and a half away from it.
But I mean, I don't know. It's not out of the, it's not, especially these days when you really don't know what their philosophy is going to be. Are these guys going to get called up? They're bigger guys, so they work perfect for main roster, both of them. And so I wouldn't take too much away from any of this. I wouldn't take too much away from Scarlett not being there with him. I wouldn't take too much away from any of this stuff. Main Event's not really a program that's meant to be watched, to be honest with you. I mean, I think it's on Hulu. They probably put it on Peacock, right? I don't know. I have no idea where you can even watch Main Event. But yeah, I wouldn't, they're going to do, they're going to, this is what would happen. They have the match on main event. Either Vince really marks out for one of these guys or both these guys like, oh man, we got to get these guys on main roster like as soon as possible. Like maybe even at the draft or even before that, but probably not before SummerSlam. And then they figure out, okay, well, maybe they look at what they're doing in NXT and say, hey, it'd be great to adapt that for main roster. More likely, they're just going to do whatever they want to do with them on main roster. Yes. Like their time in NXT be damned.
Yeah, that's what history has taught us. Yes, there's several precedents of that happening. Of someone having a character that works really well in NXT to get called main roster, they don't do that at all.
Yeah.
It seems like they're taking a real incremental steps here with this round of call-ups for people they might be interested in calling up, because prior to Kross and Reed working those untelevised matches at Thunderdome a week or two ago, we heard, several weeks prior to that, the WWE officials had gone to the Performance Center to check out some exhibition matches between some potential, I would think, call-ups. So maybe they watch those. All right, we want to see what Kross and Reed can do at Thunderdome for those officials who couldn't make the trip to Orlando. Maybe, they have a non-televised match. Check out, some of the stuff maybe the cameras wouldn't necessarily pick up, and then this for main event is kind of like your camera test, essentially. That's what it seemed like.
Yeah.
How are you presented? How can you present yourself in the main roster production setting?
Right. Yeah. So, and then they figure out creative day of a week in advance. Maybe they'll give them some fancy vignettes. I don't know. So, you would think that they would watch NXT and that'd be enough. But I understand that main roster is a completely different animal, and they'd proceed in this fashion. They want to take their times before they bury him on main roster. So, and I'll be honest with you, I understand that the Kross Scarlett tandem in NXT, it's packaged brilliantly. She's got this really sort of great mystique around her, but I also have always been kind of bummed out that they've never really alluded to her wrestling, because she is actually a really fun wrestler. Like if you can go back and look at some of her stuff, even some of her more talky stuff in Impact when she did the smoke show there is pretty fun. Like, she can do a variety of things, and, maybe packaging her with Kross the way she is on NXT is holding a lot of that back. And, I don't know. I think she might have more individual success without him. I think it takes away from his packaging, but it helps her individually. So he's maybe going to have to sink or swim on his own. I don't know.
Could be.
We'll find out soon enough. But yeah, kind of interesting to see that obviously they're not trying to hide this. It's not like, I still say that the way they did it back in like 2015, 2016 is the way to go. The way they did it with Finn and Kevin Owens, that's the way you do it.
Even Sami Zayn.
And Sami Zayn, Sami Zayn as well, where, they didn't have matches on main event. So they're sort of telegraphing, hey, we might be looking at these guys. Kevin Owens just showed up with the NXT title in tow, laid out John Cena. I mean, you'd have thought, hey, that's the blueprint right there. That's how you do it.
I know.
They don't. For whatever reason, they don't do that anymore. So, yeah, interesting stuff. You want to talk about Raw now?
Sure, we can talk about Raw now. It was a fun show. I mean, there's only really one segment that was, from a creative standpoint, really head-scratching. Whenever Raw focuses on good in-ring action, they keep the talky stuff to a minimum, strictly to directly and efficiently motivate storyline and motivate matches. It's generally better. It doesn't seem like that difficult of a formula. You put a couple of really good wrestlers, or 4 or 6, however many you want to do, in the ring, let them do their jobs to the utmost of their ability, because the roster across the board is probably the most talented it's ever been. And you stay out of their way. You know what I mean? Like, you don't do all sorts of complicated backstage over-scripted nonsense. You stay out of their way. Let them do their stuff, and the show is better.
I don't think it could be overstated just how better Raw was to me last night. I watched and I was like, man, it really did feel with moving on with some, and not across the board, but some fresh feuds, two killer matches. Two absolutely killer matches with two guys who just went through Hell in a Cell. And that finish aside, the Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley finish aside,
physical, brutal
match. There's a chunk of Bobby Lashley missing. That was a brutal match. You could see it on Drew McIntyre. You could see it on Bobby Lashley. And then the next night, 24 hours later, they put on two 4-star matches, one of which, again, is in Hell in a Cell. Drew versus Riddle might as well have been, because they were killing each other, and Drew was just magnificently selling the injuries from the prior night. That match hurt to watch because Drew was doing such a great job with it. I thought that stuff was great. So much of it actually really felt like, Bobby and Kofi, that's happening at Money in the Bank now. Xavier Woods is having now, over the past couple months, a Sheamus-like resurgence in them allowing him to wrestle, to show us what he can do. Sheamus went through this same thing a year ago, 6 months ago, whatever it was. There was a period of time he was just putting out banger match after banger match after banger match. Now it's Xavier Woods, and it's so much fun because that match last night was killer, a killer match. So that was good stuff. Money in the Bank, we've talked about this. Stakes. There's something on the line. People are hungry to get in that Money in the Bank ladder match. And oh my God, two guys who should always be in these matches, but are never usually on the winning end of matches against high-profile opponents. Ricochet and Morrison should absolutely be in every Money in the Bank match.
Yep. And
they made it in.
And I like too the stories coming out of the Riddle Drew situation, where Drew is basically desperate to get back to the main event scene, get that title back. And you could tell, physically it took a toll of Hell in the Cell. His loss beat him up way more mentally and emotionally than anything that he was inflicted upon him physically. It's going to be interesting to see how far they take that. Say he loses next week and there's a second chance match. We can talk about that a little bit more in a second. I also really like Riddle. He's just desperate for Orton's acceptance. I know. Validation.
I know.
He is so desperate for it. He just wants Randy Orton to give him a fist bump. That's all he wants.
And the thing that I love about that bit with them at the top of the ramp, Riddle's dying, right? He's like, he's selling his injuries. He's like, come on, bro, what? You can talk to me. You can talk to me. And I honestly don't know. There's so much ambiguity to what's going on Orton's face. It's so many things. It's, God, I want to RKO this guy, but I really don't. Because I really do have a soft spot for Riddle. And I was dying for him to give him that fist bump. I was dying for him to do that. And that's what you want. You want these complex relationships.
Exactly.
It was such a beautiful moment that was so well done by the performers. Yep. I thought that was really terrific stuff. And we got, when I saw the still of this, I was like, your initial reaction when they swing this heavy, is like, oh, what is this? But when I actually watched and I saw the Nikki Kross superhero rebrand, it's perfect. It's perfect because it's her. It's perfect because Nikki Kross should be a superhero. She went from like sewer person, like underground mutant dweller in NXT, and she's actually gone through a journey that has some logical steps to it, some long-term character arcs. And the natural conclusion of which is her becoming a literal superhero. And we were just last week talking about, man, she's getting these wins, but like they don't feel legit. Well, she found that spark, put on the superhero costume, and she's made that realization. So she's taken it to the next level with that confidence. She got a legitimate win last night.
Yeah. When I first saw the stills of the Nikki Kross stuff before I watched Raw, I was, your instant gut visceral reaction when you see something like that is, without knowing context and all that, can seem kind of silly. And given WWE's history of booking.
Right. Why is that? Because of the benefit of the doubt thing. It's hard to give them that sometimes. Yeah.
And then you see her talk about how this is something that she has created.
Yeah.
That she is invested in.
Yeah.
So right there, I'm like, okay, now I'm interested. Now let's see where this goes. and you watch how you hear her talk about the genesis of it on Raw when she's talking backstage, the reveal of it. I'm like, okay,
she
I can give this a chance.
explains it. She says, this is the physical manifestation of me trying to explain my spark and what the confidence is and trying to better other people by being this symbol. And it's like, whoa, what is this? It honestly just felt, and maybe they just have a really good writer. Maybe they collaborate. I don't know. I'm interested in the writing process of like where this came from, because it's not insulting to our intelligence. That's what, it's not as if they could do this and I'd be like, okay, if it's done right, like all of a sudden she has superpowers. Like they have supernatural stuff going on, but it ain't that. It's, hey, I feel like a superhero, so I'm wearing this to show people and to be that physical manifestation. She's explaining it to us, which is brilliant.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see what layers they add to it,
Yeah.
So,
and apparently
that'll give it longevity.
Sinister Steel mentions also, apparently she has pitched this idea. This is coming from her.
I mentioned that earlier. Yeah. This was her idea.
Yeah. Which always makes it so much better. My only takeaway is that she has such a wonderfully expressive face that the mask itself, I'll probably get used to it, but I feel like the mask itself does a bit of a disservice because it's a bit on the clunky side. But she has some wonderfully expressive eyes. And I feel like that might take away from this. But that being said, her body language is so expressive as well. So everything about her is so expressive. And everything I've ever heard about Nikki Cross, everything that anybody's ever said about her, her social media presence, she seems like the most delightful person. Yeah. And the fact that this might be her road to being book strong and right on the verge of fans being back, they're going to love this.
I hope so.
They're going to eat this up. And I mean, talk about a money-making machine. If you want to bring kids into this, they're going to eat. Alabama, I can tell, if she saw this, she would eat it up. She would love this stuff. So that was really good. And then I was even impressed with, we're not getting 6 months of the Piper Niven Dewdrop Eva Marie thing. They pulled the trigger on her standing up for herself last night. That was great. And I have no idea what's going to happen next week, but it's very unexpected.
Yeah. We get the details of that when we get to it in the show. Let's talk about this real quick. So there is a second chance match next week between the three losers of the qualifying matches. Last night, you got Randall Keith Orton, you got Drew McIntyre, you got AJ Styles. Given their individual stories going right now and this, how one of their inclusion in the ladder match would potentially enhance that story, I kind of feel like it's going to be Randy Orton. Given, what we saw last night between him and Riddle, Orton, I won't say devastated, but he was pretty upset about losing his match to John Morrison.
Yeah.
You see Riddle, elated at the mere sight of Randy coming down the ramp to watch his match, much less winning.
It was a great moment.
And just wanting Randy Orton to say, good job, good win. That's all he wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Having Orton that ladder match is going to create a really interesting dynamic between the two of them. And we'll get some idea of what direction they're going to head in long-term with them.
Yeah, sure.
Whether this is going to start to implode pretty soon. Are they going to carry on and try to get those tag titles at SummerSlam? We're going to find out, Money in the Bank will be the real fulcrum in terms of determining which way that's going to go. Drew's not winning it because that's the story now.
It is. Yeah.
It's desperation.
Yeah. And he does it wonderfully. He plays it wonderfully.
Yeah. And AJ just doesn't win singles matches anymore.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
No, I think you have a good point. I think it's probably going to be, okay, so who eats the pin in that match?
It really should be Drew.
It should be. Yeah. Phenomenal forearm RKO. Maybe an RKO to AJ and then RKO to Drew. I don't know, but yeah. I mean, if you load up enough finishers on the guy, I mean, God, the roll up was humiliating. I mean, in retrospect, it kind of works really well.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it's like you can't say, "Hey, I was taken down by his sheer power." No, I fucked up again the way I messed up at WrestleMania with this idiot MVP holding onto my leg, and then I got humiliated and rolled up.
You know how actually Drew should lose? Backslide to Randy.
Yeah.
Because that's how Drew beat Randy at SummerSlam last year.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. It should be a wrestling move.
God dang. It's like it's all just falling apart.
Yep.
All right, let's take a quick break here to get a word in from the sponsor of today's show, Manly Bands. Hey, Larson.
Yeah.
We're both happily married men, but shopping for my ideal wedding band was basically a nightmare. Going to jewelry store after jewelry store.
Well, Steve, now husbands-to-be can avoid that hellish experience thanks to Manly Bands. You see, Manly Bands lets you get the look that you want in just about any material imaginable. Even material from space.
Space! We're talking meteorites here, people. I went with a black zirconium band to replace my old wedding band, which I totally lost. And it's great. And the ordering process was super easy. First, you get yourself a manly ring sizer from Manly Bands to make sure that your ring will fit perfectly. Once you know your size, check out the insane selection of materials to choose from. We're talking gold, wood, antler, steel, dinosaur bone, and even the meteorites that killed them.
I went with the carbon fiber band to replace the insanely heavy ring I got years ago when I got married. I never wore it because it was too bulky. But this ring right here from Manly Bands is super comfortable and lightweight. And once you've selected your band, Manly Bands offers free shipping worldwide, a 30-day exchange policy, and a free warranty.
So to order your Manly Band and get 21% off plus a free silicone ring, go to manlybands.com/raw. That's manlybands.com/raw for 21% off. Manly Bands, the best damn rings, period. And before we get back to the show, here's a word from the sponsor of today's show, forhims.com. Hey, Larson.
Yeah.
Is that hairline of yours slowly making its retreat? That might seem rude, but 66% of guys start losing their hair by the age of 35. But I'm here to tell you that the best time to prevent even more hair loss is to do something right now while you still have some follicles on that dome of yours.
You know, and why do guys turn to odd solutions or do nothing at all when they could turn to medicine and science? Hims is helping guys be the best version of themselves with licensed medical providers and FDA-approved products to help treat hair loss.
Hims connects you with licensed medical professionals online. All you got to do is answer a few questions, and if it's determined it's right for you, you'll be prescribed hair loss treatments that are shipped directly to your door. It's discreet, completely confidential, and means you can say goodbye to all those awkward in-person doctor's visits and long pharmacy lines.
Today, Hims is giving you their best offer yet. If you're not happy with your result after 90 days, Hims will give you a full refund. And right now, Going In Raw listeners can get their first visit absolutely free. Go to forhims.com/GIR. That's forhims.com/GIR.
Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Remember, that's forhims.com/GIR. Yeah, that's good. Good stuff. So let's go ahead and run it down. Kicked off with Lashley and Lashley's ladies and MVP heading to the VIP lounge there in the ring. Bobby says they went through hell last night. MVP says what we take away from last night, though, is that Drew McIntyre can never challenge you for the title again. He says, I look around, I see 2 alpha males, 5 gorgeous women, champagne, and that makes for a hell of a party. Let's raise a toast to the almighty champion. And then the New Day's music interrupts. They come down with literal toast, with actual toast.
On a cart, yeah.
They started, those things look tough, too. They were flinging the toast at them.
It looked like it had been toasted and then cooled, so it's extra dry.
Yeah, right.
There's no butter or jam or anything on it. It was just dry toast.
Just dry toast, the worst. So MVP gets on the mic and says look at this. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Kofi. This clown nonsense is why you were watching Hell in a Cell instead of main eventing it like Lashley. You're a clown. You belong in a circus. Once we get in front of fans, you're going to continue to play video games and dress in your cosplay while we'll be enjoying the finer things in life. Now get out of here because we're going to celebrate. And Kofi says, we're not leaving. He says, it's well documented. I surround myself with friends and family, people I trust, instead of users. He says, Bob, hey, Bob, let me ask you a question, Bob. You think MVP and the lady friends are going to be coming near you when I beat you for that title? And Lashley says, I'm never losing this title, especially not to you. You're too busy making pancakes to win this. You lost this. There's a hierarchy here. I'm up here and you're down here. Kofi brings up Kofi Mania, the fact that he beat Lashley in the ring. He rolls the footage of him beating Lashley inside the Raw ring. He says, last time I checked, you don't have an opponent for Money in the Bank, so I'm here to challenge you. And MVP says, whoa, wait, challenge him. And Lashley just cuts him off and says, I accept. Lashley says, but last time, the one thing you forgot to roll in that footage is the fact that Drew helped you. He says, we need to make sure Money in the Bank gets one-on-one. So tonight, let me take on your video game playing clown friend, Woods. And Woods brings up, he says, you guys are part of that old school toxic masculinity culture. Can't appreciate a true Renaissance man like myself. He lists his accomplishments with Up, Up, Down, Down, with his G4 hosting duties, talks about being an 11-time tag team champion, and then says, so yeah, I accept your challenge. Or he says, so how about this? Tonight, we'll have a match. And he looks up, and Hell in a Cell's still there. He says it's going to be in Hell in a Cell. And MVP starts to, again, talk for Lashley. And Lashley just cuts him off. He says, I accept. That's fine. And then they say, because New Day rocks. They start doing the New Day rocks thing, and then Lashley accepts. And, just really, really strong stuff from everybody involved.
Yeah, it was solid. A solid opening segment. First match of the night was a Money in the Bank qualifier between AJ Styles and Ricochet. They both had promos, backstage segments beforehand. AJ and Amos walk up to the Viking Raiders. AJ calls them less than zeros. They're nothing. And Hanson, Ivar, said last week they had a phenomenal victory over them. And AJ says it was luck. If they want a real raid, watch his match tonight against Ricochet. He's going to win Money in the Bank, win the title again. After that, he'll defend the tag titles against the Viking Raiders. Ray Rowe, Eric says, we beat you once, we'll do it again. And AJ slaps the turkey leg out of Hanson, Ivar's hand. Ricochet had a picture-in-picture promo, so this night's his chance to show he deserves a spot at the top. Calls himself a rarity. He's willing to do whatever it takes to win. Really fun match between the two of these guys. Viking Raiders come out at one point just to go after Amos. Amos wasn't even getting involved. They just wanted to fight.
They just wanted to fight the guy. And Amos, I love him so much because he can't stop smiling. Like when he does the raw thing, he's got like a beaming glow on his face.
I know.
He's like,
blast.
I'm about to run through this barricade and it's going to be a lot of fun. He charges the Viking Raiders and they like duck him and he just goes barreling through the barricade and he kind of no-sells it because he's up relatively quickly after that. Because after that distracts AJ.
Because he's watching all that while set up for phenomenal form. Ricochet's still in the ring, so he goes for the forearm. Ricochet hits him with a recoil to get the win.
Yeah, because he was basically like the opening bit had like a really cool Ricochet like runs up the ring post, but then AJ's able to take advantage of that, posts him, and then he's kind of dominating the match until that last bit when he got distracted. Yeah, like you said, that recoil. Ricochet, I was like, man, awesome beginning to Money in the Bank here. We got Ricochet in that match. Backstage, Riddle and Orton are there. Riddle talks about winning Money in the Bank so he can get that briefcase and keep his stash in it. And Orton said, I'm sorry, you're what? He's like, my stash of Whoppers, bro. He's like, because that Burger King worries me. I think he's going to steal my Whoppers. Orton gets annoyed with that. So Riddle's like, he's like, hey, look, man, you've won Money in the Bank. You've cashed in. Do you have any pointers? And Orton's like, yeah, stay out of my way. And Riddle says, that'd be hard to do, bro, especially if we end up fighting for Money in the Bank. Two brothers fighting for the opportunity. Wouldn't that be awesome? And Orton just looks at him and says, not for you. Yeah. And walks off.
And then Riddle gets sad and goes, oh, good luck, Randy. Just having one of those days.
Right, yeah.
After that, we had an Eva Marie Piper Niven interview. So Eva Marie's pulling a Chris Jericho and calls Kevin Kyle. Says it's been 5 years since she stepped in the ring. She wanted everything to be perfect, so she went and got her nails done, a manicure, a pedicure, but she caught a cold and therefore couldn't actually wrestle. But since the WWE Universe was eager to see her return, she had her protege step in, and she goes, so introducing, what's your name again? And Piper's about to say her name.
About to say Piper.
Eva Marie cuts her off and says, your name is Dewdrop. And Piper is upset.
Upset.
Visibly upset.
And I love it because it's like the WWE's playing with our expectations for them to screw this up. You know what I mean? Because it's like, okay, we find out that they've trademarked Dewdrop, and it sort of leaks out that her name is going to be, I think Sean Ross Sapp it's going to be Dewdrop. Oh, that sucks. Another main roster F up. And then Piper almost says her name, and she gets saddled with it. The way all these Retribution got saddled these terrible names.
I know. It's like something they were doing in NXT UK with Shaw Samuels.
Yeah, with Shaw Samuels, yeah. I'm not Ed Harvey.
Yeah, Eva Marie says, all right, Ken, the evolution must go on. And as they're walking off, Eva Marie's telling Piper to, like, fix her robe or help her put it on or something.
Yeah. And then we have
match.
The qualifier. So they're doing this in sort of tag teams. Asuka and Naomi versus Eva Marie and Piper Niven. We get a brief Asuka and Naomi promo to kick things off, a picture-in-picture where they claim nobody's ready for Asuka and Naomi. I did kind of appreciate this because Corey's going overboard with the Eva Marie attention, but
it's like when you join a commune and you shave your head.
Yeah, right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. But I kind of appreciate it. It was sort of kayfabing the idea of changing your persona on main roster. Yes. I like that. It's like, okay, now you're not really insulting our intelligence by doing that. You're sort of bringing into the universe the idea of doing it. And it's nothing that they haven't done to some degree before, but it's just good to get a reminder that, hey, this is the kind of thing that happens. It's a clean slate. It's a new environment.
Yeah. But so situations, though, where so often history has told us that, yes, there's instances where they've done it right and they've referenced the past, even though when they've rebranded somebody. But far too often, they just have someone show up completely different person.
Yeah, right.
No reference to what they did before.
Exactly.
And that's the issue.
Yeah.
So after those promos, Eva Marie's in at first. She pretty much instantly tags in Dewdrop. She carries the load for a good while. Then Asuka hits her with a code breaker. Dewdrop looks to her corner. Eva's not there. She's standing on the floor. Naomi gets the tag in. She hits a couple moves. Dewdrop turns tables. She gains the advantage. Hits a cannonball on Naomi. Asuka breaks up that pin. And then Dewdrop brings Naomi to her corner. Gets up on the top rope. That's when Eva Marie tags herself in. She covers Naomi, gets a 2. And then Eva Marie reaches out for a tag. And Piper gets off the apron, stands on the floor, and just kind of goes, well, that's what you get.
Yeah.
Naomi rolls up Eva Marie to get the win. And Piper's just out there.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Bad. Yeah. I love that. I was like, man, I love that we don't have to wait 6 months for somebody to reach a breaking point that they sort of bury in, the mid card.
Let's take another break to get a word from the sponsor of today's show, Sheath. So, Steve.
Yes.
I know you're a boxer brief guy, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I like to keep my business secure, but I also need some room to let my dude parts breathe.
Well, let me tell you about these Sheath boxer briefs I got.
Ooh.
They're designed to keep your man bits off your legs. You see, Sheath has 3 individual compartments to keep everything down there separate and cool and comfortable. Think of it this way. I got a pair here to show.
Yeah.
Sheath's got an inverted kangaroo pouch here on the inside for your Joey.
Oh, yeah.
To keep, see right here.
Yeah, right there.
To keep you from sticking to your thigh.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Definitely don't like when things get sticky down there unless otherwise intended. You know what I mean? Wink. Wink.
Yeah, I guess. Anyways, Sheath's got a modern ergonomic design that's intended to prevent skin-on-skin contact for extended periods of time, which can cause heat and sweat. And what do you get when you take heat and sweat and put them together?
Yeah, you get the funk. You get junk funk. No one likes junk funk, Larson.
Yeah, that's correct. But Sheath prevents all that because everything is separate. That means no smelly undercarriage, and that means you'll chafe and readjust way less.
So if you want to keep your front area cool and comfortable, go to sheathunderwear.com/raw for 20% off your order today. That's SHEATH underwear.com/raw. And make sure to use promo code RAW at checkout.
Trust us to be doing your junk a favor by going to sheathunderwear.com/raw for 20% off. Again, that's sheathunderwear.com/raw for 20% off. While we're at it, here's a word from the sponsor of today's show, BetterHelp. Several years ago, while dealing with severe anxiety, I learned the importance of talking to a therapist, but also discovered that it can be extremely difficult to find the right person to talk to. Today, BetterHelp is providing a safe and private online environment where your needs will be assessed. You'll be matched with your own licensed personal therapist.
BetterHelp isn't a crisis line, nor is it self-help. It's professional counseling done securely online, all without having to ever sit in another uncomfortable waiting room.
BetterHelp is dedicated to facilitating great therapeutic matches. Send your counselor messages at any time or schedule regular weekly phone or video sessions. They made it free and easy to change therapists if needed.
And you don't have to limit yourself to counselors in your area. BetterHelp services are available worldwide, so you can find the expertise you need regardless of location.
We want you to start living a happier life today. As a Going In Raw listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/raw. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health.
Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/raw. And before we get back to the show, let's get a word in from today's sponsor, Liquid Death. Hey, Larson.
Yeah?
Give me a hell yeah.
You got beer there? Is that beer, man? I want a beer. Everyone get beers?
You see, Larson, this isn't beer. This is a couple of stone cold cans of Liquid Death mountain water. And I'm about to crack these open and drop a bang stunner on my thirst.
Oh, I see. It's water using cans of Liquid Death for your stone cold impression now, yeah?
Oh, hell yeah. Usually I say DTA, don't trust anybody.
But I trust these awesome-looking tall boy cans to stomp a
Mud hole in my parched mouth. And speaking about not trusting anybody, don't trust all those plastic bottles you think you're recycling are actually getting recycled, son. They'll mostly end up in a landfill.
Oh, yeah. Plastic is bad, and most of it just ends up at the dump because it's not profitable to recycle. But recycling centers actually make $1.01 off recycling aluminum. Liquid Death also donates 10% of their profits from every can sold to help kill plastic pollution.
So if you want to drop a
Stone cold stunner on your thirst, bang.
go to liquiddeath.com/GIR to get a free set of cozies with your first order of any case of water.
Or just go down to Whole Foods or 7-Eleven and get yourself some Liquid Death there.
Drop a stone cold stunner on that 7-Eleven clerk, say bang, you mealy mouse son of a bitch.
Don't do that. Don't drop a stunner on anybody.
Definitely don't do
You'll
that.
probably get arrested. After that, Adam Pearce and
that's
Sonya Deville are in the ring, and they ask for Rhea Ripley. She comes out, and they say, hey, Rhea, we decided that what you did at Hell in a Cell was unacceptable. And she's like, what? And they explain the title change rules. Can't change hands on a DQ or count out. He says, these rules were not meant to be abused. You intentionally abused them and threw that chunk of table at Charlotte to get the DQ. Rhea says, wait a second. Charlotte does that all the time. I'm just doing what she does. Why do those rules apply to me and not her? Charlotte comes out. She says, Rhea,
Well, Pierce says, yeah, that's great, but Charlotte isn't the champ.
She's been like, what, champ? But 14, how many?
13 times.
13 times. God, 13 times. So Charlotte comes out, says, Rhea, I'm not mad at you. I'm proud of you. Last night I was kicking your ass, and you proved you're smarter than I thought. You're quite clever. You're a strategic competitor, but I'm still going to destroy you. Sonya says, it's going to be Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte at Money in the Bank.
We're going to get another weird finish, and they're finally going to have the real match at SummerSlam. That's what's going to happen.
Not quite that pessimistic, because that's going a bit overboard.
Or they're going to have their weird finish, and someone's going to get cashed in on.
Somebody's definitely. I find it difficult to believe that this is going to end with Charlotte getting pinned or Rhea getting pinned. There will be a weird finish, but I also kind of feel like, especially, and I know was that like a legit report rumor that Becky's being listed as a SmackDown superstar? Did you read that?
I didn't see that, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Okay. So I don't know about all that, but why wouldn't that surprise you?
What, Becky being on SmackDown?
You don't think they'd launch her right into a title scene?
No, because Seth's on SmackDown. They would probably want to travel together now that they're going back out.
They're going to travel together, but the draft is there. And wherever Becky, I'll put it this way. Wherever they put Becky, Seth will follow, not the other way around.
Definitely.
So I still think that's a fluid thing. And I think that it's more likely they'd put her back on Raw, A, for the ratings, but B, because the title scene there just makes more sense for Becky than on SmackDown. But, I mean, it remains to be seen. I don't know. I think we're going to get probably some surprises. I just find it difficult to believe that with all this stuff happening, they're going to keep this particular thing static all the way up to SummerSlam, where I kind of feel like it's going to be Becky versus Charlotte. It'd be great if it was Becky versus Rhea. That'd be rad. But I kind of feel like it's going to be
Becky versus Bayley too. They might want to have Becky on the card, but not necessarily in the title picture.
They may have
may have plans or ideas they want to do going into SummerSlam that are not dependent on whether Becky is going to come back or not, because probably they don't unless she says firm yes, I'm coming back. It's not a sure thing that she's going to come back.
Oh, that's how I think that's
I think she is going to come back. I'm saying from their perspective, until she says yes, I will be back here this date. You can have contingency plans.
Well, you always need that, yeah, for sure.
They got to, who's to say that when she comes back, she's going to be put right into the title picture?
Yeah, I don't know. Be interesting to see what they do.
I don't know. After that, we had Tamina and Natalya. The shoe is on the other foot, as the saying goes. They're about to do an interview right near the photo shoot set. And then Mandy and Dana are working out in the ring. And then Tamina and Natalya go over there to them, annoyed.
Why wouldn't they just say, hey, good job, guys. That's awesome. They're like, hypocrisy. Hey, we're trying to do an interview over there. And they're like, wait a second. You were giving us shit last week because you were in there working out and we were doing our stuff. And she was like, yeah, but we're the champions. We have to do media, press, pictures. And they're
something you wouldn't know anything about.
Yeah. So they're like, all right, well, come on. Let's run it back. Get back in here and we'll get a real finish here to this random, scrum we got going on. And then they wouldn't even let him in the ring. They tried to get in and they just, they hit whatever button they did. They hit L1 to try to get in.
The kick him off the apron button.
Right, exactly. And they just seething.
As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, they're really going to do this.
Do the exact same thing.
It's so obnoxious.
Yeah, it was pretty silly.
Then we got Randall Keith Orton versus John Morrison. Morrison was actually putting in a really solid effort early until Randy poked him in the eye. Mm-hmm. Hits a belly to back on what, Steve?
The table.
Was it disqualification?
No disqualification, but he didn't throw any part of the table at him. Very important.
I will say this here. I'm gonna get into some minutia here.
Okay, go ahead.
He did not throw a piece of the table at him. However, on impact, the hood of the table did become loose and bounce up a little bit and did smack Morrison, I thought I saw. Really isn't that much different than what we saw Rhea do anyway. So later on, Morrison gains the upper hand on Randy, starts working over Randy's shoulder. He has a history of shoulder issues.
It's right here.
Thank you, Steve.
It's right here.
He's got the official rule book. That's official.
The official rule book.
So Morrison sends Randy into the corner. Orton explodes out of it with a clothesline. He has the upper hand now. His draping DDT is setting up for an RKO. And The Miz, who was on commentary, he comes down ringside, squirts Randy with the dripstick. And so Orton gets distracted by that, stares down Miz. Morrison rolls him up, gets two. Orton uppercuts Morrison out of the ring completely. Riddle rolls down on a scooter. There is a low-speed chase around the ringside area with Riddle chasing after Miz in his wheelchair. Orton's distracted by all that. Mm-hmm. Morrison drapes Orton's throat across the top rope, hits Starship Pain to get the W.
Yeah, man, I love all these Starship Pain wins. It's kind of the best thing. It's pretty great.
It is pretty great.
After that,
as much as I like to see John Morrison with the briefcase, just to annoy Miz. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel like it's a little too soon to go back to that situation because I don't want Miz anywhere around that briefcase. Anywhere.
This is not realistic for him to have it.
Not two.
Okay, hold on a second. Let's pause here for a moment. Let's pause, Larson.
All right.
Let's do this. Let's just do this now. We got Morrison. We got Ricochet. How many spots are there? 6?
8.
8. Oh,
4
nice.
for each brand.
Okay, that's what I thought. So Morrison, Ricochet. Who else is anybody else qualify?
Riddle.
Oh, Riddle, right.
And you got to assume Randy.
And then I think your case for Randy is a good one. Let's talk about SmackDown. Is there any chance that either of the Usos are going to be put in the Money in the Bank match or qualify?
I hope both of them are in it.
Is it likely, though? Is it likely?
It kind of depends if Jay comes back this week. If
Boy,
Jay
this
is
Friday
back,
is going to be compelling.
Yeah. If Jay is back this week, I think it's definitely a possibility. You're going to have as potential contenders to be in it. You got to talk Big E.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll put Cruz in there just because he's the Intercontinental Champion. Sheamus didn't get a spot.
He'll have a match at Money in the Bank.
Probably. So if you take him out, Sammy, then you got to consider Sami Zayn as
Kevin Owens is going to be gone for a while. Yeah.
Owens is going to be gone.
Cesaro's got to be in it.
Cesaro.
And then let's say an Uso. Let's say it's Jay. So we got Big E, Sammy, Cesaro, Jay.
So if they do qualifying matches on SmackDown, that's two of the 4 qualifiers. And if you assume they do one like they did on Raw, they have 3 qualifiers. Loser of those qualifiers get the second chance qualifying match.
Well, I'm just saying, like, those are the likely names. Well, okay, hold on. Do you think Seth is likely to? I'm talking about like who's going to advance.
Oh, Seth could definitely be in it. Yeah.
All right, Big E, Sammy, Cesaro, or Jay. Who leaves in lieu of Seth? I think it's going to be like Seth versus Big E in a qualifier. Seth wins.
I mean, they really should do Seth versus Cesaro in the qualifier, and have it act as kind of their blow-off match as well.
Eesh, that's a possibility. There's two. I mean, there's two. There's one heel and one sort of semi-heel with Jay. I mean, he's a heel, but let's say this is the 4: Big E, Sammy, Cesaro, Jay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that's the 4.
Yeah.
Morrison, Ricochet, Riddle, Randy. Who comes out with the briefcase?
Jay.
I don't know if they want to do. I mean, the thing is, like, Money in the Bank at that point serves one story as opposed to a bigger thing, which obviously last year they completely goofed on it. But traditionally, do you think that's the kind of story that they would use? Money in the Bank's a big deal.
That's kind of why I like. That's kind of why I like the idea.
I like it.
It's not the traditional story. It's something
like
different.
it.
Maybe they realized last year with how badly they bungled it because they thought, oh, Otis is a guy to do it. Granted, not a lot of faces of Money in the Bank, historically speaking, but still, hey, let's approach this from the traditional standpoint of a guy we're going to put this briefcase on, and at some point we'll have him cash in, and maybe he'll get it. Odds are he will, maybe he won't. But it's always somewhat detached, that story, from whoever happens to be the champion at the time. If you put that briefcase on Jay, and he's already directly involved with the champion at the time, Roman, that's a completely different dynamic.
It's a great story. My question is, do you think they'd go that route? I don't know that they would.
I don't know that they will. They should, because that's the most interesting story.
It's going to be Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is going to be Mr. Money in the Bank again.
I don't see anybody from Raw. I don't see anybody from Raw getting that briefcase, though.
None of them make sense. None of them make sense on Raw. Morrison and Ricochet, no. They're there for cool moves.
Yeah.
Riddle and Randy take each other out of the equation.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's Seth Rollins.
Someone from SmackDown, yeah.
Whose name is Seth Rollins. After that, we had a Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax interview. Nia says what happened last night won't happen. She is assuring Shayna this won't happen again. Shayna says, no one in that locker room scares me. Nothing they do, and nothing these two will do will stop us from qualifying. And Nia says, Shayna says, and then Nia says, there is something different about Alexa. Yeah, she can hypnotize people. Then we had Alexa Bliss and Nikki Kross versus Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Before Nikki's entrance, she had a little promo there backstage at the gorilla position where she says, beating Charlotte and Rhea over the past couple weeks have given me a spark. I have found my spark, and I'm excited to share the physical symbol of my spark. No matter how far you fall, you can always get back up, and tonight I represent all of us, no matter our shortcomings. It's a little bit longer now, but that's the gist of it, and I thought it was great. It seemed so from the heart, so genuine. It really felt like she was legitimately pitching this to us, like, hey, this might be a tad goofy, but trust me, this is coming from the heart. And you cannot you can't be against something like that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What'd you think of Alexa Bliss's new music?
Oh, I barely noticed it because I tend to fast forward through entrances. Is it no good?
I vastly prefer when it was her original theme, just kind of with some unsettling
The
changes
demonic
to
stuff to it, yeah.
And there's a little bit of her original theme still in this, but it's like her saying like "Welcome to my playground" with some like shouty type singing going on. Yeah, it just seems kind of, I don't know, it seems as distinctive.
No, I'll play it back. I'll see. I don't know.
So the match happened. So at one point, Nikki avoids a charge from Nia. Nia gets posted. So Reginald comes over to check on her, and then Alexa drops from her corner off the apron to the floor, maybe trying to hypnotize either Reginald or Nia again. As Shayna runs over and it's like, "Hey, we got to focus. We got to focus." And this allows Nikki to get to the top turnbuckle, jump off for a crossbody. Later on, Alexa Bliss is back from commercial. She has the upper hand until Shayna sticks her fingers in Alexa's eyes, and then your former tag champions, Nia and Shayna, have the advantage. Alexa starts a bit of a comeback after punching Shayna in the throat, hits a code red, gets the tag to Nikki. Nia in as well.
That awesome like crawl to the hot tag on Nikki, where she was like putting her legs like it was like something out of the ring. Lately. That was great. That was so awesome.
She's been doing that kind of stuff lately. So Nikki charges towards Nia, almost runs into a power slam. She escapes that, drop kicks Nia, then runs into a boot. And so Nia is holding up Nikki so Shayna could punch her. Nikki moves, and Shayna almost punches Nia, but then they start arguing.
Nia said, "What was that?
Why are you arguing?"
I like that Nia yelled, "What was that, dude?" She said, "Dude," it made me laugh. What was that, dude? So, yeah, she gets pissed. She goes to the outside. Alexa gets on the turnbuckle and starts hypnotizing Reggie to almost slap Nia. And he's about to. And, like, he breaks free of it or whatever. Nikki ends up kicking them both and then brings Shayna down with, like, a crucifix pin for 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was pretty rad.
Another roll-up loss for Shayna.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we had Drew McIntyre backstage. Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville walk up to him. Oof. Pearce is like, "Hey, man to man, tell me how you're doing." Oof. And Drew says, "Well, not great, but I'm not worried about the past. I'm focused on the future, earning my way into the Money in the Bank ladder match." Sonya says that he went through hell last night. He doesn't have to do this. And Drew goes, "No, I actually do have to do this. I did go through a war last night. And I'm sure you haven't approached Lashley to tell him that he doesn't have to wrestle in Hell in a Cell tonight." Said, "I'm sure you've talked to the doctors about how I'm doing physically. It's not good, but it's a lot worse up here." He says, "But I'm inspired by a couple of words from Winston Churchill."
This is so when I tune out. All his little like quotes and stories and
historical stuff. I know.
It was so perfect the way it was. You know, yeah, I'm not doing good, but you're not asking Bobby this stuff. He should have just skulked off. I don't need to hear this stuff.
At least this little quote from Churchill was much shorter than the other 2 stories he's done the previous.
That's a good point, yeah.
Because pretty much, to summarize, never surrender. He says, "I will never surrender." Yeah. You want to talk about hell? I'm in hell right now.
Yeah. He should have had
but the didn't need the Churchill quote.
You know what would have been great? He has his back to the camera when they approach him, right? He's all scarred up. Mm-hmm. They're like, "Drew, how you doing?" He turns around, he's got a box of donuts. "I've been better."
Yeah.
And then he just walks away.
He's got a huge cheeseburger. It's like I haven't had one of these in 10 years.
He's double fisting cheeseburgers.
I know.
I haven't had one of these in 10 years. This is my hunger. This is the physical manifestation of my hunger. I'm so hungry.
After that, we had Jinder and Cedric and Jeff Hardy arguing.
Oh, man.
They're all upset that they didn't get qualifying matches. Jinder says, "I'm a former champion. Why am I not in a qualifying match?" Jeff Hardy says, "Well, I'm a former champion too. Why am I not in qualifying matches?" Cedric says, "That's the problem.
Yeah.
All these antiques here talking about the past, invest in the future. Me, who's got their best days ahead of him."
Jeff is like, "How many times are you going to lose to me? Stop worrying about fights of the future and worry about losses in the present."
Yeah.
This is a pretty good bird.
Sonya says, "I understand all your frustrations. Matches are final, though."
Yeah.
And so Sheamus is just hanging out there. And he goes, "I'm the U.S. champ. I shouldn't have to qualify. I should be the match automatically." Adam Pearce goes, "Oh, your nose is good then, huh?" you can compete. And Sheamus goes, no, it's messed up. It's all shredded. I got to go to the doctor now.
I
later.
gotta go
And
to
he
the
leaves.
doctor now, man.
And Jinder complains some more. He's like, I'm supposed to be cool with Ricochet and Morrison being in there. Drew squandering his chance for a 9,000th time. He says, he calms himself down. He says, you probably have your reasons. Thank you for consideration. But in case something was to happen to one of the competitors who are in Money in the Bank, consider me as an alternate.
So is it going to be Ricochet or Morrison that's going to get taken out and by like Shinky or something like that?
I mean, if Drew does manage to win the second chance, he could be the one taken out by Jinder.
Yeah, that's true. That's totally true. Yeah.
So Drew thinks, all right, bang, got my path back to the title, only to have it taken away from him. That's
motivates
impossible.
a SummerSlam match or whatever.
Yep.
It's good to see. It's good to see Jinder, by the way, because he'd been gone for a couple weeks.
It is. Then we had Riddle versus Drew McIntyre. Early on, this was a great way just to sell the effects of the Hell in a Cell match. So early on, they're kind of, like feeling each other out a little bit. And then Riddle kicks Drew in his back where his welts are. And Drew acts like he got hit by a truck, basically.
Oh, man, yeah.
It's like he pretty much a base hit where he tightens up his back and he has to walk it off. I understand if you actually get hit by a truck, it's a lot more devastating than that. But
Not if Drew gets hit by a truck, though.
But the way he sold what in a normal situation would be a fairly pedestrian kick, established really early on. All right, Drew's not 100%. Despite that, he has the advantage for the early part of the match. Riddle hits a Broton, starts working over Drew's ribs. Drew responds with a backbreaker, knocks Riddle to the floor. Riddle, though, drives him to the ring post, hits overhead belly to go to commercial to come back. Riddle's still in control. He's going up top for a Broton. Drew gets his knees up. Drew goes on a run, looking for a future shock. Riddle reverses that into a jackknife cover, gets a 2. Riddle hits with the clothesline, gets a 2 count, hits a reverse Alabama slam. He's looking for a belly to back off the top rope. Riddle blocks that. That leads to Drew hitting that trio German suplex he does, and Riddle took a nasty bump off that.
Dude, that was kind of scary, yeah.
That was. So at that point, Orton wanders down the ramp, and Riddle's kind of getting himself off the mat and sees Randy, and
it's like Christmas.
Happiest smile.
It's like Christmas.
Yeah, he's so happy. Randy. He's so happy.
Oh, Randy.
So we go to commercial. We come back. Drew's looking for an air raid crash off the top. Riddle reverses that to a sunset flip powerbomb. Follows that with a running knee. Gets a 2. He goes for ripcord knee. Drew blocks that. He ducks the Pele kick from Riddle. Hits a Michinoku driver. That gets him a 2 count. Drew goes up top looking for the clothesline off the top rope. Riddle catches him with a triangle. Drew powers up to escape. He's looking for a backslide. Sorry, Riddle's looking for a backslide. Drew kicks out of that right into a future shock DDT. That was a really cool transition. That gets a 2 count. So Drew set up for Claymore. Riddle can't even get to his feet at this point.
Yeah.
So Drew goes over and starts to pick him up. Well, Riddle picks him up. Drew reverses that. Riddle escapes, hits a ripcord knee, goes up top for a floating bro, misses that. Drew looks for a Claymore.
This was a great counter.
Yeah, Riddle counters that with a bro mission. It's like catches Drew out of midair.
Oh,
it was
man.
great.
It was so good.
So Drew powers out of that. Riddle flings Drew over his head. Riddle hits a knee. Drew responds with a headbutt, puts Riddle up in the electric chair position, and Riddle hits like a victory roll.
Yeah.
Roll up to get the win.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Really good match.
It was good stuff. So afterwards, Riddle rolls up to Orton, who, again, it's difficult to read him, and he always looks pissed.
Yeah.
But, and Riddle's like, dude, Randy, give me the fist bump. What's going on? What's going on, man? He's like, you can talk to me. You can tell me anything, and I'm here for you, man. I'm here for you. And then he starts like wincing because he's still hurting from the match, but all he wants
I like
is
at one
just
point he actually
validation.
turned around to make sure Drew wasn't going to attack him too.
I thought he said, what, is there somebody behind me?
Did he say that? Okay.
I thought that's what he said. But yeah, it was just really good stuff. And Orton basically gave, at one point he just sort of puts his head, he had his head down for most of it, and then he puts his head back up, and I'm like, how am I supposed to interpret that? Like, where are you coming from?
Yeah.
It's very conflicted. That's all the voices in his head, man.
Yep. Got that
This
right.
was great. So backstage, Mansoor comes up to Riker, asks him for some advice. He asks what he's doing. Riker kind of no-sells him, and then Mansoor's like, okay, well, whatever. And then Riker says, never let your enemy escape. And you're like, wait, what? You wanted advice, right? Those closest to you are wolves in sheep's clothing. That's why next week I'm facing Elias in a strap match. Elias is all about that music. Next week, the greatest hits will be the sound of this strap smacking his flesh. Mansoor says, that makes sense. Thanks. And then Ali is waiting for him right there. And he says, you're still looking for answers, but asking all the wrong questions. And he looks over at Riker, of all the wrong people. You need to ask how all the qualifiers stole the spots meant for us. If you can't even get an opportunity to climb the ladder of success, then you have to build your own ladder. And then it sort of camera pans back over to Riker, who's just staring. But Mansoor had the
he was slapping himself with the strap, man.
That's right. He was slapping himself. He was flogging himself. And then the greatest thing is that afterwards, I don't know if it was this morning or last night, but Mansoor tweeted out or quote tweeted that segment that WWE's Twitter posted and says, why am I in my career mode right now? Because it's such a my career thing from 2K.
That was pretty great.
I was dead loud. This whole thing cracked me up. I don't know. I thought it was so dumb. But Mansoor really, he's got the personality that's like proxy for us. You know, he really does. Like all these weirdos around, and he's got a really great personable voice and just a really pleasant face. And it's like, oh, you know, this guy is what we'd be doing right now, coming up to weirdo Riker. The greatest hits is going to be this strap smacking his flesh, and he's all hitting himself like a weirdo.
Yeah, it was weird.
He's definitely sort of the weird John Rambo guy.
Kind of. Then we got our main event, Xavier Woods versus Bobby Lashley. Early on, Woods is taking a chair to Lashley. We go to commercial, we come back. Tables have turned. Lashley is working over Xavier Woods until Woods low bridges Lashley out of the ring to the floor. He's looking for a baseball slide, and Lashley lifts the apron back, traps him in there, hits a bunch of shots, throws him into the cage, hits some more shots. Woods looks for a roll-up. Lashley blocks that, stomps on him. Woods, though, responds with a chop block, basement drop kick. He gets a kendo stick, starts taking that to Lashley. Woods hits a wheelbarrow facebuster that gets him a 2, hits a tornado DDT, another 2. Woods sets up a table. As soon as he turns around, Lashley picks him up like he's about to powerbomb him. Woods escapes that, hits a couple super kicks, which lays out Lashley on the table. And then Woods hits the top rope elbow.
Brutal.
From the opposite side of the ring. He almost went the whole length of the ring to drop this. He overshot Lashley, too.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Puts Lashley through that table. Only gets the 2 count, though. He looks for a Shining Wizard. Lashley dodges that. Throws Xavier Woods into a chair set up in the corner. Hits the spear. Puts on the Hurt Lock. Woods taps. A really fun match.
Dude,
afterwards.
It was killer, yeah.
It was really good. Lashley rolls Woods out to the floor. He's slamming against the cage right in front of Kofi. And the ref, this was great. Ref unlocks the door of the cage because the match is over. As soon as that door is open, MVP sneaks in, grabs the door, slams it shut, and locks it back up. He's got the key.
Yeah.
And so Kofi runs over there, is trying to shake the door open. Meanwhile, Lashley is laying into Woods, puts the Hurt Lock back on him, and Kofi runs around back over there and is forced to watch. And MVP has the key and is like dangling it over Woods to tease Kofi.
Yeah, that was rough stuff. And yeah, in all that chaos, we fade out. I love that stuff. I love when you end on the action. You know, it's awesome. Yeah,
rather than an awkward stare down or something like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. It's like too long. All right, let's go ahead and answer some questions.
Sure.
I got a thread here on the Patreon. One quick reminder. Patreon.com/Steven Larson. Got a new patron, Hunter V. Thank you for your support, Hunter V. It's a great way to support Going In Raw. At the $5 mark, you get access to our bonus content and ad-free audio as well. And at the $20 mark, you can get the Steven Larson comic book as part of the Friendo Care Package, along with some stickers and an 8x10 signed by us. It's a full-color, 32-page comic book featuring a never-before-told Steven Larson origin story.
I mean, it's a story that can only be told in the pages of a comic book.
Correct. It's way too expensive.
That'd be too expensive.
Netflix would have to pony up some of that Spielberg money.
More like 3 times that.
Yeah, man.
An outrageous sum of money.
What was the Spielberg?
I don't know. I'm just guessing it'll be 3 times it to make that
right?
movie.
Yeah, $1 billion.
It's got to be the hundreds of millions of dollars.
Or $3 billion. I'm telling you, man. If Spielberg took anything less than $1 billion from Netflix, then he's a fool.
Let's I guess I can look into that. Asian Murr with the sub says, who would have thought main event would be primetime TV now? I know.
Right. Jester Design says,
NXT call-ups.
would love to see, Jester Design says, would love to see Woods take on Sheamus for the U.S. title. Yeah, I think he's probably going to be, wouldn't shock me to see Woods be King of the Ring.
Yeah. So wasn't it Spielberg saying that Netflix movies shouldn't be eligible for Oscars?
Yep. And then they backed up the Brinks truck, gave him some NFTs, some of that NFT money, and Netflix FT. Mr. Sinister says, why do the men's have singles matches to enter Money in the Bank, but the women have to compete in tag matches to enter? It's just a different way to do it. I'm totally fine with that. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, hey, if you're in with a good tag team, you're set. Otherwise, you got to do a little bit more work. I like it. I think it's good. It's just a different way of doing it.
I could see why people might be disappointed by it, But
I think at that point you're sort of looking for a reason to be disappointed, because I can understand sort of the idea. Oh, why the women they're in tag matches, so you have to rely on somebody else. But
I think more than anything else, it's probably a situation where there's so many women right now on Raw and SmackDown involved in storylines that kind of are existing outside of the main title picture.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of you think anybody want a chance to get Money in the Bank because it's guaranteed title shot.
Yeah.
But from a creative standpoint, if they look at what they got going and see, well, half the women's division on Raw is involved in something that's going to take them out of that whole thing. Well, maybe they don't think there's the depth there to have singles qualifying matches. I'm just guessing, looking at what's going on. If you look at the roster, that might be their rationale. Not that I agree with it, but that might be what they're thinking.
You're probably right. But that being said, if they had the same number of matches, which they obviously won't, they can cut that in half. But I don't know. It seems to get more people involved. I'm fine with it. I like that, it's just a different challenge. It's just a different challenge. You can have a partner that helps you coast, or you can have a partner who makes you do all the work. Whereas in the singles competition, it's just you. I don't know that there's, a good or bad there. I don't know that there's, one favors the other. I'm fine with it just being different. Should they have done it maybe all singles on Raw and all tags on SmackDown or vice versa, something like that, regardless of men or women. If you do something different with the men than you do the women, then people are going to draw obvious, you're not treating them the same. And I get that. I totally understand that.
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's you're still in a match. You still have to qualify, I don't mind it.
Asian Murr says, give Woods the crown. Oops, sorry, says they're making Woods credible as a singles guy for King of the Ring. I certainly hope so.
Oh, yeah.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, I hope so, too, yeah.
It'd be awesome if they had the tournament and he won it.
We've already sort of answered that. Is Blake Whitehouse, is there a wrestler in WWE or NXT that could cut a promo on Roman that might give him cry face? It's going to be put to the ultimate test with John Cena.
Mm-hmm. Cena and The Rock. Those are really the only two names. Or CM Punk. Those are the only three names I can think of.
Yeah.
Snake Sosa, I feel like I missed out on the enjoyment of Raw last night because wondering if it would be another shit show. I just had it on in the background while doing other things because I couldn't get invested. That's a fair point. It's when Raw hasn't delivered. I understand the mentality of not wanting to give or being unable to give.
You don't know.
But to be the benefit of the doubt,
Yeah, you don't know unless you watch it. And unfortunately, lately, if you do that, chances are you're just wasting 3 hours. Moses supposes power rank the current Raw contestants' chances of winning Money in the Bank briefcase. Include men and women on the same list if so desired. On the women's side of things, we've got Asuka and Naomi, and we've got Alexa and Nikki. So
I give Alexa a pretty high probability.
Alexa,
the highest probability.
It'd be Alexa. Probably at this point, Alexa, Nikki, Asuka, Naomi.
Yeah.
On the men's side,
assuming Randy gets in. Riddle, of the Raw contestants,
the ones that have already
chance.
Gone through, Riddle definitely has the highest chance. Yeah.
And even if, regardless of who makes it in from the second chance, I still think Riddle has the highest odds. I just don't think any of them have terribly great odds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Patrick Oliva says the collaborator of Nikki Cross says they've been working on it for a month.
Oh wow, okay. I saw the drawing that her collaborator. I don't know his name or her name. I don't know. Yeah, no, I saw it. It's great. JTV says, given that Raw is 3 hours, will they benefit more from a more wrestling-based product showcasing more new wrestlers or more character and segments that let those characters flesh out more? Well, yeah, definitely you want more wrestling and you want segments that let characters flesh themselves out, not spin wheels. So, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people here in chat saying that gender is going to somehow cost Drew a chance at Money in the Bank.
I could see that.
Yeah, totally.
And this is a good question. Eddie Brock's Venom says, your job is to report on wrestling news, but are there times that you didn't? He says, because people say WWE doesn't do anything new or surprise, yet when they try to, the dirt sheets are snitches inside WWE and they leak results or returns. So, for example, how big the Hardy Boys return was. So we do our damnedest to spoiler alert stuff if we do report on it.
Like the Hardy stuff, something of that magnitude, yes.
Yeah, we generally, we will do a thumbnail with vacant and say, hey, big surprise planned for WWE, and then we'll spend a minute saying, listen, go watch a different video if you don't want this spoiled.
Skip ahead about 5 minutes if you don't want this spoiled.
So generally speaking, that's when we haven't reported on something. During the speaking out stuff, we did sort of an overview, but we suggested that people go look at the individual stories that were out there to sort of inform and educate themselves, because we just both felt that was their story to tell, not us to regurgitate it. So yeah, there are some times when we don't. I mean, if there's stuff out there, obviously we're not pulling from Wrestling News Now as much as I'd love to. We don't pull from certain sources. So yeah.
Oh wow, King CTM has a good idea. He says it'd be cool to see an interaction where Becky is on SmackDown and does her man gimmick, and then Roman comes out to say "Acknowledge me."
Acknowledge me. Let's see here. This is good. Octavia says, if Money in the Bank had been introduced in the Attitude Era, who would you think would have done well with the briefcase? Any of them. Like, imagine Foley, at the end.
Stone Cold with that briefcase.
Oh my gosh. Stone Cold, Triple H. Triple H would have been the ultimate opportunist back then.
I know.
Yeah. Who would have been the worst with the briefcase back then? You know what would have been? Undertaker. It takes so goddamn long to get to the ring.
I know.
It's like you have a match
on and be able to recuperate.
You're like, I feel pretty good, but he's only halfway down.
Power meter come all the way back up.
Right, exactly. But then you get the tombstone and you're done.
RTG, I feel like if there is going to be a cash in at Money in the Bank night of, it will be the men, because if my memory serves correctly, the only woman who has held the Money in the Bank briefcase for more than one day is Carmella. Everyone else cashed in night of, or was given the title the next night. I think that's correct, because Bayley cashed in the night she won. I think Alexa did as well.
I think that they are going to do everything they can to pop those fans as much as possible. We might see 2 cash-ins.
Entirely possible.
Very possible. Let's see here. No.
E-Dub says, why not put all 4 horsewomen on one roster and put Shayna, Bianca, Rhea, and Asuka on the other? It would be great for Survivor Series.
Shayna, Asuka, Bianca,
and Rhea.
All
on Raw,
that's cool.
And then on SmackDown.
Yeah, but they don't care about that. They don't care about that.
No, I know they don't care about that.
That'd be cool, but they don't care about that. Yeah, let's see here. Sky M, we're going to push on this because he asked us to do going in Raw math on Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, and we have some plans for going in Raw math. This is great. This is a good question here. Luis asks, what advice would you give Mansoor? He's going around asking for advice. Luis here mentions, don't eat chicken in the locker room. He says that. What would your advice be to Mansoor?
I don't think it's so much a problem these days, but there's been times in wrestling history that we've heard that people have done stuff to wrestlers' luggage.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you know where your luggage is at all times.
All times. Yeah, that's a
you
really
don't
good
get poop
one.
in it.
I would say, I'd stay away from Jackson Riker. Look at everybody who hangs out with that guy. Look what happens to them.
Dang MQ, if Seth wins Money in the Bank, should he match the briefcase with his suit 1,000 times?
Yeah,
Yes.
then again, that's kind of why. Like, you could just see it. Not just because because he was like kind of a different person back then. But right now, you could see him carrying that briefcase. You could see it. And the tension between him and Roman, the fans would eat that alive. Oh, they would eat that up.
Jimmy Thomas says, Natalia and Tamina were in the right. Last week, Dana and Mandy were doing a photo shoot, and they were doing a TV interview, which needs audio. Here's the thing. How come the production staff that were doing the interview didn't make sure the interview was going to take place in an area of the arena where there's decent audio?
And the
I don't
interviewer
blame Mandy and Dana for
in,
that. That's the production staff.
The interviewer ran in during a photo shoot. Like, you couldn't wait 5-10 minutes? Yeah. Let's see here. Justin says, was last night's Hell in a Cell to appease USA since they got mad that Fox got a Hell in a Cell match on SmackDown? Probably. But I thought it was better for it because, that was such a good match.
I'm just trying to do something between Raw and SmackDown and maybe NXT. Could we see someone from either brand hold the top title and the briefcase? And who would you like to see be the first to do so? Oh, that's entirely possible. Roman would continue.
Yeah. All right. That's going to do it for us. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.